sound. The neighborhood is so unexpectedly quiet today that I decided to not do our intro music, but just to go in, just to enjoy the quiet. Patricia O'Connor and Frida Reba Darcy for the bonsai balcony. A little less loud, a little less. We still have our intensity, but yeah, look at this beautiful day. And it's so quiet out. There's no chainsaws, there's no heavy equipment, the pool is being taken over by the ducks. And they're way quieter than the normal crowd there. And yeah, that's all pretty nice. It's all pretty tranquil day to day. And we're going to talk about the little things. The little things. Those are all examples of show hen. As a rule of thumb, I call show hen about that, about 5-6 inches, somewhere in there. Some people would say smaller than that. I also am not sure how that works. I think that's 5 inches from the lip of the pot. So if you've got a root over rock, you're out of luck. I think is the way that works. But maybe we grade on a curve if it's root over rock. I'm not really sure, but it seems like that would lend itself to controversy. Anyway, these are Mame. And to be Mame, they need to be about that. Another thing about Mame is 1 or 2, possibly 3 of those should be able to fit in the palm of your hand. So that's kind of what we've had going the last couple of years. We've been doing we've been ordering. First we ordered, and then we started from seed, growing taking tiny little seedlings and just twisting them up to all be darned, and then shaping them and putting them in tiny little pots and letting them grow out, letting them thicken up. Now, that's Mame. As an adult-looking, mature-looking tree, not really. We don't have a lot of branch structure going there yet. We've just started to build some. There's those buds out there, can be future branches. Also, it takes about 8 to 10 years for a Japanese black pine, I believe, is what I was told, to start making bark. So we're not going to look especially aged without that. Everybody knows that pines have bark on them, so that's a great sign of age. So we're still kind of waiting. We're still kind of waiting for some of those key signs that subliminally say that our little tree has done its time. But what we have going for us is we put some really terrific shape in it. It's definitely an interesting tree to look at. I definitely get a lot of bonsai joy bringing this tree along. This year, I'm probably 15 or 20 days away from going through and eliminating those candles, and then it'll come out with a second flush and make smaller needles the second time around. This little bean, this little Mame, is probably my smallest. You can kind of see what I mean. I could probably easily, not that I want to, I'm clumsy, could probably easily get 3 of those in the palm of my hand. And again, we set wire to, come on, focus. We set wire onto a tiny little seedling and then folded it up and put it in this small wabi-sabi pot. And I get great bonsai joy from this tiny little tree. But again, it won't be making any terrific bark. We've already got some good branch structure going there. We've already got a good back branch. But there's our guy. We're going to do candles on this guy this year and get our needles smaller and smaller. But every year it will get a little fatter and look a little, and which is also a sign in bonsai of age, is whenever your trunks begin to swell up and get fat. And all the wire that we put on these helps that. This guy is a lot fatter than its years would indicate because of the wire that we put in and the shape that we put in there. Now there's another way. There's another way to get to achieve that. Instead of taking a seedling and wiring it and putting it in a bonsai pot, we could also take a seedling, wire it. I'm getting ready here to show you. And then put it in a larger pot. Ooh, I need to put food down on this. And the reason I need to put food down is this, most of its substrate has already gone. And we can see the candles coming up. I got 3 or 4 of them. Now, it wouldn't be candle cutting time for this tree yet. And we are going to cut some of these to keep the tree small. However, one of those candles is going to be allowed to elongate, to just run right on out. Let's say I'll pick one that I've decided is the middle one, and I will just let it run. Next year, you'll see that it'll be 4 or 5 inches high by itself. This tree will have gone from our little Mame 4 inches, 2-3 inches, whatever that is, to that one candle being 3 times longer than the rest of the tree. And the year after that, bigger still. And then all of this stuff, all of that trunk will begin to get fatter and fatter and fatter to compensate for that one candle that we're allowing to create a towering height for this otherwise small, piled up down here, coiled up at the bottom little tree. And it's at that point that also the branches that we did cut back, they will create more buds, and so that'll start to get fuller and stuff. But we're going to have to watch that, because the backside of that is as that candle that we're allowing to grow, and that's going to be a sacrifice branch. But that candle that we're allowing to grow will be getting all of the energy, and the tree will start to allocate more energy there and less energy to the lower parts of the tree. So at some point, we may have to start kind of fooling with the candle a little bit, kind of do a needle pluck or something, as if we're actually bonsaiing that part of the tree. When we're not. We're just trying to make sure that we keep enough energy going down in the bottom, because in a year or so, 2, 3, 4 years, maybe 4 years is probably a good time, we'll cut that candle, which at that point would be a foot tall. But then this tiny little trunk would be as thick as, would be fairly thick. It would be as thick as a magic marker or something. And it would have gotten all of that girth, because we will allow it to be in a bigger pot, so its roots will have gotten bigger and more, produced more, and that one candle will allow to have grown tall. So when we chop that back down, we will have chopped that back down to a height that would again be Mame, except it will have created a big huge trunk. Also, we would have created a big huge scar where that candle had been allowed to harden off into actual trunk, into actual fibrous tissue, and then we went along behind that and cut it. So we'll have to cut paste that, and we will see that until it rolls over. Maybe don't cut it off. Yeah, and we will see that until it rolls over. Maybe we can gin that, I'm not really sure. A lot of times those things, when you cut them off, they're still green, and as green they don't make. They don't tend to harden off after that and make good gins. They just tend to, rot away, because they never really became hard and woody with resin in there that would help to preserve them. So that is the other way that quite often, whenever you go to a big bonsai nursery in Japan and you see people that are making Mame and shohan trees, you will see them with a whole bunch of small trees, except they'll put them in colanders. And they'll put them in colanders because of what that will do to expedite the root growth. And the little birds. I've got peanuts out for the crows, but the little birds come in between them and get the little ones. And you can hear them. Anyway, can't see them, but I can hear them. So when you go to, if you were to go to a nursery in Japan, you would see like tables and tables and tables full of colanders, cooking colanders, like you'd see in a kitchen, and they would all have substrate in them, and sometimes they would have small plastic bonsai pots in the middle of those, with a pine tree in the middle of that, so they could extend the roots and extend the roots and extend the roots higher and higher and higher, so they could have more exposed roots. Would be the reason for the cup inside the colander with the tree inside the cup, right? To raise all of that up so that you would end up with all of this stuff that you could later expose. And then they will all have these candles, and there'll be a table of like the ones we did last year, and the candles be sticking up like 4 or 5 inches. And then there's the table of the trees that we did the year before that, and those will look pretty much the same. Their colanders will look a little greener with algae from all the water and from 2 seasons of being out in the sun and the wind and the rain. And their candles will be, twice that size. And then there's the 3rd year, and you will look, and those trees will be fat, and they will have been bent, and they will have motion, and they'll start to look all fat and cool and stuff. And that's the point which they'll go in there and do all those trunk chops. And even though, you're looking at something that's probably now maybe, I'm using my cypress, but let's say it's this big, it's some big, but you're going to cut it down to where it's that tall. And proportionately, that's going to come off as a very, very fat, very tiny little tree. And that is how you make another way that you make a highly desirable Mame bonsai. What we're doing here is kind of an experiment. I saw a couple of people on Bonsai IQ doing this. I watched Hilma at Bonsai IQ, and I watched on another show, Kimi Bonsai. I watched her take some of her tiny trees and wire them, and I think she wired them and did them up and put them back in plastic pots. I decided that just for the sake of us, we didn't have room. Well, we have room for whatever we want, but we would just take our trees and just take them to the next level and put them in bonsai pots and see how that. It'll take a couple of years, but these are going to be better every single year that they get fatter with all that shape and stuff into them. And right now we're looking a little gangly and teenagery because all of those long extended pieces you see there, those are almost as long as they're going to get, because in 2 weeks I go through and I start cutting them. I start cutting the candles off of all of our bonsai trees that we've taken our fertilizer away from. All of these that we're going to do the candles on have got their substrate removed. I'm not doing this one because of the repot. Not doing these little guys because they just got potted. Not doing this guy because it just got repotted. All these other guys, this guy's looking yellow. I'm probably going to go back to feeding and taking a minute. This is $1.50. It doesn't have any issues. I don't know if it got too hot, but right now it's not looking so great. I'm probably going to put its biogold back down and just let it take a year, see what's what. And we did lose a Mame over the spring. When the weather got hot, this guy went from yellow to dead, and all I could do was react to what I saw, and it never responded to anything I did. So, yeah, that was a cool little tree. I liked this little tree. I knew something was up, so we had already planned to not do the candles. You can see its biogold was still in place. There's very, very, very little. You can also see that the trunk has started that shrinkage thing they do when when they're no longer up doing an uptake of water or anything. They've, completely shut down. The last of any resources is adding color to that, or it's already just dead, dried, and with a little chlorophyll intact. But that's a shame. That's a shame. That's, I guess part of the process. That faint little bit of green says that when I go back through here and water, that it'll still get that out of just respect for the time that it's been here. But yeah, I've already accepted that we lost another little black pine. Quick look at our literati, which is not really in keeping with what we're doing now, but I just love looking at these trees. And that's going to be it. This isn't going to be a real long show. Some of these other trees are showing the most impressive candles, or ponderosa pines, and they are single flush pines. We treat them pretty differently on all the fronts. So yeah, like for instance, this is our ponderosa. To keep this tree small, at some point I'll go through and cut the top out of it just to keep the height down. And I suppose we'll do that sort of like we do our cypresses. We'll just cut our height and then take our next bud and point it up a little and let that be our new apex and start over from there, trying to continually work the tree down. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. Our little neighborhood's starting to come to life. I guess as I got loud, so did the neighborhood. That's the way it goes. I appreciate you. Frida appreciates you. Our next drop will be tonight when we do our Saturday night live bonsai. And I really enjoy doing those programs. And tonight will be no exception. We will be we'll be trying to knock one out of the ballpark starting about 8 o'clock tonight. So thank you so much for watching. Cue the jets. There weren't any chainsaws this time.